Good morning, everybody. I'm Justin Broughton. I'm with ICE 287G program. I work for ICE headquarters as well as I'm stationed in the Houston field office. Many of you have seen our field program managers that are in the state. We don't have enough of us yet. We're going to get there. Right now in the state of Texas, there's 6 dedicated program managers, and we're going to be expanding that quite a bit over the next few months and going into the next couple of years with all of the programs that are coming on board and where we're going. Couple of things. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand whenever it comes up. We'll address it right then, even if I have it later on in the presentation. I won't keep you too long, but if you do have specific questions about how stuff's going to work in your area, come along at the end and we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. A little bit about me. I've been with the federal government for a little over 35 years, going on 20 with ICE. And during that time, I have been in your shoes overseeing detention and detention oversight for 7 different facilities and upwards of 3,000 beds at the height of my time a few years back. So I appreciate what you do day in and day out. And as Sheriff said, we on the jail side keep the sheriffs out of trouble. We take care of all of those that are in our custody, as well as protect the sheriffs and the community and all of the oversight that comes with it. So with that, I just want to say thank you once again for what you're doing there. And it's a tough job, and we understand it. So who here has not heard about ICE 287G? Everybody has. We are the most talked about agency in the federal government right now. And to put it in perspective, this is the #1 priority of this presidential administration, period. It is the #1 priority of the entire federal government, as well as it is the first time in my 35 years I've seen an entire whole of government response, meaning that we are putting every federal agency to work in some way or another on the immigration enforcement, as well as the support on the backside of that. Part of that, though, is we realize we, the federal government, are not everywhere that we ever would want to be or could be. You all in all of the different cities, counties, you are the ones that are interacting with the public day in and day out. We just can't be everywhere, and it would be cost prohibitive for us to maintain a footprint in every location across the country. To try and get around that, we are working with our partners, and under Section 287G of the INA, it allows us to delegate limited immigration authorities to our partners. And I say limited because it's very specific what those partners can and can't do. And those of you that have partnerships with us already and have undergone the big program, the jail enforcement model, which we'll talk about, the oversight inspections for that, the big thing that we stress during those inspections, those compliance inspections, is not only what can we do, it's to let the public and everyone else know what we are not doing. We are not jumping outside of our lines of authority. And that's something that we try and make very clear for you and your sheriffs so that your public and your constituents know exactly what it is you are and aren't doing, and how this program not only helps the federal government do our job, it helps you actually do your job more efficiently in working with this. Because I can say right now that, once again, thank you to everyone in this room and every agency that you represent, that everybody here works well with ICE. And in the state of Texas, we're blessed with that. And as a taxpayer here, I'm excited that that is the situation. It's not that way in other parts of the country. It makes it difficult for ICE to do its job, as well as for you all to protect your communities in the long run. You'll hear me talk at different times about the Memorandum of Agreement, or the MOA. That is our contract, essentially, between ICE and that jurisdiction. And that jurisdiction can be Sheriff's Department, it can be police departments, it can be constables. When we talk about the jails, we're not talking just county jails, we're talking city jails as well, depending upon how that jail works. Essentially, if your facility releases inmates and turns them over to ICE as detainees, and you release them directly to us on detainers, then our jail programs could actually work in your location. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But like I mentioned a moment ago, we want to talk about what delegated authorities are there and are not there. The ICE supervisory requirements, where we don't just say, hey, sign up for this and do it on your own. We have reach back for you, and whatever your folks do, we actually provide that guidance and supervisory oversight. We take care of all the training and provide it no cost to your organizations. And then we also have things that are in there for the complaint process for inmates that don't like the process, how they complain to ICE and our Inspector General's office, and then what information your programs can and cannot release to the public. ICE data is privileged to ICE. We make the decision. We run the interference. If you get a records request down the road on how this operation was working with ICE inside of one of these MOAs, we take care of that on the records release for everything relating to the ICE processing and detainee information, and then how we terminate the agreements. So we have 3 programs within the 287G portfolio. 2 of them, as Sheriff mentioned, are long-standing programs that we've had partnerships going back to 2017. 2 of them are inside the jail. 1 is in the field. Now, all of this information that we're pretty much going to talk about today is on the ice.gov website. ice.gov, you'll click in the center, it'll say Immigration Enforcement, and it's a whole section devoted to 287G. All of the different documents, more supporting information, maps, all that information is on there. How to sign up, how to reach out to folks, it's all on there. In addition to the phone numbers and emails and headquarters to reach back. For those of you that have turned inmates over to ICE on detainers, the phone numbers that you call locally are usually one of the command centers in either the Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Harlingen, or El Paso field offices. That number is usually a command center instead of just a duty person. If you've got a question about this, call them and say, hey, who is your current program manager? Our program managers are reaching out, and I'll put my information up at the end. You can always reach out to me, and I will get you over to the right person to answer your questions, even if it's not inside the Houston AOR, because we're working statewide and going on nationwide. As I said, this is the #1 priority of the administration, so we're adding and growing daily. So the 2 programs that we have inside the jail, one is big, one is small. The jail enforcement model is one where your officers are trained as full-up immigration officers inside the jail and allowed to do the full investigation, full access to our systems, and lodge that detainer themselves under the supervision of a ICE supervisor that signs off on it, or myself. The warrant service officer is a much lighter program, and this is something that you all are doing 95% of already. As you're aware, you're done with an inmate, time served, charges dropped, posted bond, whatever, there's a disposition. ICE already lodged that detainer, and you told us, hey, we're done with them, come and get this guy or girl. When that happens, we have to send an ICE officer with arrest authority, as well as whoever we're using for transport or ourselves, to come pick that individual up. Under the warrant service officer program, we end up using your staff to serve that warrant, and then we can send transport to come pick them up. Contractors, National Guard, as of this week, they're starting to transport for us. We can use different locations. that we have contract companies with, other departments, they can actually then pick up from your location, because your folks would then have the limited authority to serve that warrant. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the questions that your folks are getting when they're done with their charges are, when is ICE going to come get me? The warrant service officer is going to answer that. Your jailers already answer that. When are they going to come get me? Can I take my money? Am I going to get to take my property? Am I going to get to call my family? How long is it going to take to get there? You're already answering those questions. The one other step that you're going to then do if you sign up for it is serve the actual warrant and say, hey, this lets you know you're now in ICE custody. Sounds great for ICE. What does that do for you? One is it simplifies the whole what's going to happen to me and the anxiety of that inmate now being done with their inmate time and transferring to becoming a detainee. It also protects your agency because you are now holding that person under an ICE arrest versus just honoring the detainer waiting for us to pick them up. They are now in ICE custody. If there was any sort of a habeas claim against your sheriff's department, the family's like, he needs to be let out, let him go, we're going to sue. It's not going to work. It's not going to work under the detainer anyway, but under the warrant service officer program, once y'all have served that warrant, they're in ICE custody. If they've got grief with it, our attorneys are going to be the ones that are going to say, yeah, too bad, so sad, you're actually in custody awaiting transport. We'll get into a couple more specifics about the timing on releases and such between the two programs in a moment. The first two that are in your jails, those are mature programs. As Sheriff Boyd mentioned, we've had these agreements in place from at least 2017 in some areas. These programs are solid, very spelled out, very limited on what can and can't happen inside them. The task force model is the big animal on the streets right now. That is where we will delegate immigration authority to patrol officers, patrol deputies, constables in the field for them to make immigration arrests in the field. It's growing, it's changing. The resources are being thrown to that program like we've never seen before on any of our federal programs to support those agencies and not only reimburse them for what expenses they're going to have, to make it an incentive for them to help us. What does that mean for you all in the jails? That means that eventually down the road, a lot of the programs that come on board with the task force model are going to want to have one of the other programs in place, or in addition to that, they're going to want to have some sort of a contract with ICE to house those detainees that are arrested on the side of the road out in your communities for them to put them somewhere. Right now, the way the rules are written, and until we get the attorneys and or the folks with the money to change it, which they're working on, is under the task force model, if a partner agency arrests somebody in that community, if there is not an agreement with ICE in place for detention space, either an under 72-hour detention, an over 72-hour detention location, or we call the basic ordering agreement, if we don't have that contract, we don't dump those bodies in there. We can't arrest on the street and just drop them in there. It can't happen. They have to go to somewhere that we have an agreement. That makes it hard for a lot of departments where the closest ICE office or detention contract location is 2, 3, 4 hours away. The folks on the East Coast are starting to figure this out, that is the biggest hurdle for us out here is the distance. We're so far apart where we travel 3 hours, we're 2.5 counties away. They travel 3 hours and they're 3 or 4 states away. So they're learning it. They're going to put money towards it. There's going to be opportunities for those locations that have the ability to do it to join up with the different field offices for short-term detention space. And I say short-term because we call it an under 72-hour contract. realistically, if they arrest somebody in the field, on the street, they need to be moving to an ICE office realistically the next day, 24, 36, no more than 48 hours later, because on the ICE side, we've got 72 hours that we need to get our charging documents going on that person after they're arrested in the field. So some of you are like, hey, I'm always close to population, which is probably most everybody in this room. Most of the time, we're going to be able to pick those individuals up the next day on the next morning run, as long as the arrest happens early enough. Who here has ICE pickups that usually happen around 5 or 6 in the morning and happen basically within 24 hours of the time you notify us we're picking them up? Pretty much everybody. Once in a while, you're so far away that it takes us 2 days because we're going to schedule it to get there. If you miss the cutoff time, obviously, we don't have enough transports to get. If we already schedule everybody over here and it's midnight and you let us know, we're probably not going to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning because we've already allocated the transport crews and they're going the other way. But that's changing. Most locations we're now picking up 7 days a week. If it hasn't gone to 7 days a week in your area and you need them to, reach out to them and ask them if they're going to start doing that. I'll go into it right now, and I'll go into it a little bit more at the end, but who here has seen the form I-247A, the immigration detainer? Most of you that work in the jails and the administrative side have seen it. Some of you haven't. There's a couple of very specific nuances to the ICE detainer process. When we send that detainer, we say, hey, when you're done with this person, we want them. The detainer says, we've got to pick them up within 48 hours. On a detainer without a warrant service officer program, so if you're not a part of the warrant service officer program, this is how it works for you today. It says we've got 48 hours. The law actually says that's 48 hours excluding weekends and holidays. Doesn't say that on the form, but it's actually 48 hours excluding weekends and holidays. So that's sometimes it'll take us that third day to get there if the timing was bad, the weather was bad. Under warrant service officer program, and this is something that's hammered home in the training when your folks do it, under the warrant service officer program, it is a hard 48 hours, period. From the time you serve that warrant for us, we've got to have that person moving in 48 hours. 48 hours in a minute, start walking them out the door. That's bad on us, sorry, for not getting there in time. We will get somebody there to come pick that person up, or you're going to have to let them out because the contract says 48 hours, not 48 hours in a minute. So that's something that your program managers will remind everybody and we'll go over in the training if your folks do it. Any questions at this point? So what is the training for the different programs and how does it benefit your folks? The gym model is the most robust of the 2 jail programs. It used to be 4 weeks in person at Charleston. We have the first class going through right now that is a hybrid course. Montgomery County, sitting in the back, my partners, I have an office space that I work with them in there. They have a student in that right now. The first 3 weeks of the training is now virtual. So it's online, self-paced. They've got a 3-week window to get that training done. Most folks are getting it done in just about 2 weeks because you lose lunch breaks, you lose breaks in the middle. You can go as fast as you comprehend. You can go back and forth on your own pace, take your notes. 3 weeks online, 1 week in person. That was what our partners out there have asked for, and the sheriffs have said, hey, it's hard to lose jailers for 4 weeks to go do the training because of not only your schedules, but their family lives, their pets' lives, scheduling child care, animal care, you name it. We've changed it, we've dropped it down to 3 weeks online, 1 week in person. The Warrant Service Officer Program, this is the one under SB 8 that I anticipate that most every single one of your programs will join up with us on, as a minimum, is 8 hours of online self-paced training. They've got 30 days to get the training done. Under the Warrant Service Officer Program, any of your jail staff, we prefer jailers, but any of your jail staff can be certified under this program. Not a requirement to be a peace officer. If your location wants to use some of your deputies that are patrol deputies that also work jail stuff for you and come in, they can do that, but it's whoever works your jail staff. We've made it as simple as we can on the service of the warrants, as well as the requirements to pay attention to the few other things that come up, like, is the person proficient in the language that you're talking to them in? English, Spanish, whatever else. If not, we have the process in place of how to get the interpreters online, what numbers to call, how to document that, as well as if they make a U.S. citizenship claim, how to stop the process, reach back to ICE, and make sure that we take care of that. The task force model obviously doesn't apply to you all on the jail side as much, except that you'll want to know what's going on out there with the rest of the department. That one's going to be self-paced, 40 hours of training, and they've got 2 months to get it done. Some folks are getting it done in a few days. It's all self-paced. Depends on how fast they can read the slides, take the quizzes, and be comfortable with the material. Any questions on those? Okay. This number is changing daily. I updated it last night. As of last night, we have 1,001 signed agreements covering 40 states. I didn't pull it specifically by Texas. I can let you know that, just for example, here in the Houston AOR, out of our 57 counties, as of last night, we had 43 of those counties already signed up for a minimum of 1 program, all the way up to 3 programs, as well as about 6 others that we had submitted yesterday and the day before that are pending. And we have most of the others in our AOR that are pending sign up, that it's either with the sheriff for decision, with the commissioner's court if the sheriff wants to visit with the commissioners on that. We also have in our AR, we already have constables and police departments signing up with us to help us out on the task force side, as well as the warrant service officer side. So those of you that have city jails, like I mentioned earlier, if you release to us on detainers, then the warrant service officer could fit. The jail enforcement model, because of the training, the background access, and us having to actually drop IT equipment into your facility, if you want to do it, we're probably not going to say no if you're a smaller facility. But if you're a smaller facility and we don't have the number of encounters to warrant the training overhead that your folks are going to have to do, and the background checks and maintaining the IT equipment and the every 2-year inspection, it may not be worth the overhead on that, where if you're helping us under the warrant service officer side, that frees up our resources to answer those phone calls for the detainers on the other side. The medium size and the bigger jails, that is where the GYM program, the Full Up program, works wonders. It not only helps us get detainers on those individuals faster, you're all calling us anyway, or we're getting the information electronically on most of the encounters that come through your jail, but not all. And the reason I say that is we've learned in some of our other partnerships and seen it many times that individuals will come into your jail and they'll bond out because they came in on an out-of-county warrant or one of your own warrants. When that happens, it doesn't you're not generating a new NCIC transaction. We don't see that person electronically. So even if we already know their biometrics, we have their immigration A number, we have their fingerprints, we have their passport data, all of that. If you don't submit that new transaction and it make it through DPS to the FBI and FBI to us, if that doesn't happen, we don't see that person. And if y'all get busy in the grind, it's easy for that person to post that bond and walk out. Sheriff, are you going to talk about that a little bit more, about the changes with bonds, warrants that already had bonds and then haven't actually seen the magistrates, or not? Okay. Short version on that, sorry for the sidebar, is as some of you have already seen, folks would get arrested, they'd come in on a warrant, the bond was already set as a condition of that warrant, they would pay the bond and they would get back out before we got our detainer to you. Even if you called us, we may be sitting there in the background gonculating on the computer, running our checks, getting it in the queue for somebody to send it, and the person's already bonded out, and then you're like, hey, sorry, the guy's already gone, then we'll go get them in the field. It's gonna happen. But from working this side of it, on the 287G side, as well as having worked the jail side of it, as I mentioned earlier, we wanna protect the sheriffs and our constituents. The last thing we wanna do as those working the jail is let somebody go that we should have been able to turn over to somebody else, and then that person goes out and reoffends when we had the opportunity to keep them off the streets. It happens, not throwing darts, but we want to try and prevent it. This number's growing like crazy. Like I said, it's going to keep growing, and as the money starts funneling in for the task force program as well as the other programs, where it offsets and then incentivizes, we'll see even more partnerships. It's the pretty map with a lot of dots. The dots are about a month old. The big thing you'll see is with the blue being the task force, that's the one that's growing like crazy. And then warrant service officer here in the state of Texas, eventually the state of Texas will be all green as a minimum. And I can't say enough how much we thank y'all for the support and the help. So what do we pay for as it is today? We pay for the credentialing process, we pay for all the background processes, all the training, for our folks to do the oversight. Any IT systems that we need to put in your facility for the jail enforcement model, we do that. Warrant service officer, there is no IT requirement. There is no outside inspection agency that comes in. It is simply, we train your folks, we credential them, and then y'all help us do the warrant. The GEM program is the one where we drop IT in there, we drop the full ICE network. And when we do that, your folks that sign up and do that program with us, they undergo a full scope background on the federal side. What that means is they're gonna get the full background that I have. They're gonna have access to all of our systems, and they can help with anybody that's in your jail, they can help you answer questions to your administration. They cannot help do investigations for people that are out on the street. It's only for folks that are already in the jail. If there are questions on folks that are on the street, then we need to reach back to the local ICE office and get with them. See that one down there where it talks about fleet? For the task force model, money is coming for vehicles and support there. There's been discussion that maybe down the road that some of that money or money that's being allocated under SB 8 here in Texas, some departments are looking at using that for detention transport. Under the warrant service officer, we are asking you to serve the warrant. We also delegate detention and transport of aliens under that contract if your department is so inclined and able. We're not requiring it, but it's available if it fits in your program. Some locations are looking at the use of that money going, hey, we can do that transport, we can bring them to you when they're done, and that justifies that expense under SB 8. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. That's a good use for those that have smaller numbers in a remote to use the funding towards that. Program oversight. I hated it. It's getting better on the ICE side. I know you all don't like it, but you have people come get in your business all the time. ACA, the state. If you have an ICE detention contract, who here has a ICE detention contract? Anybody? Sorry, I apologize. We are our own worst enemy on the oversight process. Some of my jails that I had in the past would have they would have 3 or 4 inspections every year for our long-term detention sites. It's crazy. That's changing. We're getting it down to, it's much more streamlined, much more efficient, not duplicating the efforts. Hopefully we'll get to the point, I don't know if we'll actually get there, but hopefully we'll get to the point of we can have a contract in place with no additional oversight. If you've got a jail license, then that's good enough. It's being worked on, it's not there yet. We'll see how that works out in the long run. For the jail enforcement model, our Office of Professional Responsibility are the ones that do the primary inspections. They're not the bad guys in this case, they're actually the good guys because they come in and they actually make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I say we, that's us, the field program managers, and the partners in the counties, making sure that we're doing it right, as well as they then report back and say, hey, they are doing it right, and that keeps other folks from second guessing what we are or are not doing. For the warrant service officer, it's just us, the field program managers, and our co-workers in DC. We come down just to make sure that we're documenting the training and the certification initially and getting that authorization to your folks correctly, as well as getting the credentials. And then on the backside, getting those credentials back. Who here has warrant service officers already certified? There's a few already here in the state. The biggest hurdle we have on that program from a management standpoint in the long run is getting credentials back when your folks leave. It's not a requirement in the MOA, but we do ask that you somehow keep track of that once they're signed up with us and certified, that if you have a property card with them, throw that on there as a reminder to get that back when they walk out the door. If you don't, it's just a pain for us on the backside. We have to report it as lost and that kind of thing, but we try and get those back because we don't know that they're leaving necessarily. You do because you're getting the rest of their gear and their final paychecks. So please try and grab those if you can. If not, we'll work through it, and that's just the way it goes. And then any files, any paperwork that's going on, it's always the reach back. You're not by yourself. This is a partnership where you have all the support from our folks that you can need to answer the questions. All right, any questions so far? How are we doing on time? Okay. The jail enforcement model application process, they're basically the same. It's going to be a letter of interest, memorandum of agreement, and then y'all provide us candidates, which we send it out to you. It's 3 forms, which it's a simple, they certify that they haven't had any PREA convictions, that they give us permission to do the background check, and permission to contact them if there's any questions that come up. The jail enforcement model, they will then get a process to do a full SF-86, so anybody that's been in the military, EQIP, SAS, those are the programs of record now. It's the same as the military and everybody else in the federal government. It documents everything, and they look back 7 years for employers, and they talk to your neighbors, that whole process. But if they're working for you, they probably pass. They'll go to school. We already talked about how long the school is. We're shortening it down, and we'll see how that works. Warrant service officer. We will do a minimal background check on the warrant service officer. So they'll do those 3 forms, and then you'll submit a spreadsheet that has all of the candidates on there. The main things that has that we don't have on the forms is city of birth, as well as their social. We do a minimal background, basically an NCIC check, because we don't know the last time that your department did a background check on those employees. Some of them, it was their initial onboarding when you hired them. Some do it yearly, some do it 5 years. that kind of thing. So we do that one once. For the task force model, because they're actually current certified peace officers, and on that side, we don't do it because we're recognizing their peace officer status. It's a little bit different every jurisdiction, so that's where we're at on those. I already talked about this. We'll get the training going. For those that are having folks that are starting the WSO training here in the near future, and those that will have it coming up down the road, the only real catch on the timing is when they receive the first email that says, go in, log in and create your eFLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, go in and create your virtual account for the training. They got about 48 hours to do that. So if they're using their county email and they hear that somebody else got it, hopefully they can come in even if it's their off days, or we'll have to reset their profile. If they use their personal email for that initial contact, they can access the training from any device once they log in. They can do it from their phone, they can do it from home, they can do it from your computers. We don't care. It's just that initial 48-hour roughly window to get logged in and build their account, and then it starts the 30-day clock. And if they don't, we'll reset them. If they don't finish the training for some reason, we'll reset them a second time. If they don't get it done over the 2 tries, then we'll reach back to you and ask you, is this somebody you really want in the program, yes or no? If it was family, life comes up, we understand that. If they just don't want to do it, then that's a discussion for you all to have. When you nominate folks for the programs, we, ICE, the program managers, we do not say yay or nay. We leave it to your department's discretion. You're nominating the folks that you want in the partnership. We facilitate that process for you. That's it. So we don't vote yes or no. It's strictly on you all who you want in there. Task force, same concept. Allows us to use our benefit or our resources more efficiently. We talked about the WSO, how it can help you all. The gym program in the bigger jails, our folks down in Montgomery County, where I'm working with them a lot, it has been a benefit for them to more efficiently process all the detainers that are coming in, making sure that they're getting lodged in their system correctly so that we and they are not missing pickups. We're not letting people get back out on the street because we're missing that timing. It's worked a lot more efficiently inside their jail doing that. So LT and everybody back there, thank you. We appreciate it. If you got any questions about how it's working for them, please ask them personally. They've been a great partner, and we're going to keep going. Their second person that's going to be essentially full-time is graduating training right now, and then they have a couple of others that are current and certified as well. So when you, on that, I will ask that y'all consider down the road when you put nominees in for the gym program to consider folks that are going to actually have time to log into the systems and process a case here and there, because the training overhead and the time to keep them current in the systems, it's probably better suited for your folks that are actually working your intake side versus those that are in management roles. Now, we do know that a lot of folks promote and they move up because they're your good employees and they move up. We'll maintain that certification as long as you all want them to. We just know that as they gain more responsibilities, this additional duty over there can become a drag on them when it comes to the training. So at that point, as that happens, just nominate somebody else now that the training's easier, and we'll take that off of their shoulders. Some folks want to keep the training because they enjoy knowing exactly what's going on in our world and how it interacts with your facilities. So be it. We'll keep everybody trained that wants to be trained, but just ask you to be selective on who you put in the program if it fits in your staffing model. And like I said, the other part that is a huge benefit of the gym program is the ability to do those interviews yourself. Because We all know that a lot of these inmates lie when they come in, especially in today's environment. They're going to lie to the arresting officer. They're going to lie to your bookend staff. A lot of times, though, they'll change their story and they'll tell the truth if they're foreign-born when they see the judge, because they don't like lying to judges. They don't mind lying to officers and staff, but they'll usually change their mind when it comes up, or it'll come up during their criminal proceedings while they're being processed and still held in your jail. If that pops up, or you find something later in their property, or you hear something, if you have designated DIOs, designated immigration officers, they can actually go in and question that person. If not, kick them over to our command centers and reach out that way. This is more for your sheriffs to decide if they want to do, but it's a letter of interest, the memorandum of agreement, and submit it to the different stuff, submit it to the program managers, or it's on the website on how to do it. They're actually working on streamlining it where you fill everything out online versus doing PDF versions back and forth. Ignore all of the other parts. Just remember ice.gov. That's all you got to type in. And you can go, once you do that, where it says immigration enforcement there, second from the left, it'll drop down, it'll show 287G, and it'll answer all of the stuff that we've talked about. It has all the supporting documents. If you're doing it from your phone, you can't see it unless you go to landscape and you scroll in and out. If you do it just in portrait mode, you're not going to be able to see those columns to the side just the way it formats. If you're doing documents online, or we send you documents, just as a reminder, some folks, to make it easier for you, is save the documents to the side, work on them, and then submit. If you do the online version, all of our different subscriptions on how you interact with online versions of Word and Excel and PDFs, they're all slightly different, so it messes up the formatting. I'm sure you've all dealt with that. Okay, I have a couple more things. You're all familiar with this, the 247A, the immigration detainer, notice of action. Who's seen a 247G? The request for advance notice. It looks just like a detainer, but it's worded slightly different. That is the one where if a person is lawfully here, but if they get convicted of this crime, it's going to make them removable. We'll ask you to let us know before this person leaves your jail. Or if they have pending convictions somewhere else and they're going to bounce between those jurisdictions, we ask you to let us know before they release, and we're going to screen that case one more time. There's a slight difference between a 247A and a 247G. A 247G looks like a detainer, but you're actually not authorized to keep holding that person on that. That's that last chance to say, hey, let us know what's up with this person before you walk them out the door. The 247A is the actual real detainer. So just watch that, have your folks look at it. When you all serve it, or you receive the detainer, there's a few things in there that doesn't always happen. And if I can please ask you to remind your folks that are receiving the detainers, instead of just putting it in their file and telling the inmate, hey, you have a detainer, actually serve a copy of the detainer on the individual, because for y'all to hold them on the backside or to not let them bond because there's a detainer, it actually has to have been served on the person. And then the notify DHS portion, by calling ICE at whatever phone number. That phone number is going to be either your local command center or whichever one of our partners lodged it. And if that doesn't get you to the right folks, then the Law Enforcement Support Center phone number is on there. Those command center numbers that are usually there about notifying us for the detainers, that's also, most of the time, that's your one-stop shop for if the sheriff or somebody on patrol has a question about a foreign-born person in your community, call that number and they will have the right person to talk to. Use that as your one-stop shop for all things ICE, or call your field program managers or anybody else you have a phone number for. But for that, those are usually 24/7. Like I mentioned for the detainer, 48 hours, excluding nights and weekends. Warrant service officer, 48 hours, hard, fast, no exceptions. The last part of when your folks are serving the detainer, the order's a little goofy. It says, please provide the information below the booking inmate number. Yes, we like that. We probably already have that when we sent you the detainer. Estimated release date and time, you probably don't know that unless they're serving a sentence. Date of latest criminal convictions, same thing, you're not going to have that. The important part is the part at the bottom, and this is the part that protects you when you're also holding this person and you've got it in the file, is when did you serve it on the individual? In person, by mail delivery if you're a big facility, you put it in distro to them or you just gave it to them, and then sign and date it, please. That's the foot stomp to protect yourselves and keep that copy there. And if you did serve it, we ask that you send it back to either the email or the fax number that we sent it from, so that they actually close that loop and know you actually got the detainer. Our folks are bad sometimes, and I apologize for this, that they will send a detainer and it'll either go by e-fax or fax machine or email, and your folks aren't at that device. And they don't pick the phone back up and call again because your 4 people that are on staff, somebody's going on a hospital run and they're not sitting at the computer and you're processing people out, and that detainer comes in and it's never seen because they didn't call. If you're expecting a detainer and somebody's about to walk out, please check those or call that number again and double check. And we're trying to foot stomp it with our folks that when they do send an email or a fax, to close that loop and make sure that y'all actually received it. One thing you're probably going to start seeing more if you haven't already seen it is when we send those detainers to you and when we send the warrants to you, usually the detainer and the warrant will come together at the beginning. If the warrant is not in your paper file or you still have it in the email when the inmate's ready for release under warrant service officer, we will generate and just send you a new copy of the warrant. It's getting a lot tighter on our side and our IT side that we have to encrypt and password protect when we send those documents out. So if we're sending them by fax, we're okay. If we're sending them by e-fax, where our email system converts it to fax and sends it to you, we're okay. If we're emailing it, which it is the 20th century, 21st, if we're emailing it to you, it's supposed to be password protected. You're going to start seeing that more because the firewalls are not letting the stuff go out because it has A numbers and subject IDs, birth dates, that kind of thing. So just be aware that you're going to see that. The warrant, so this is the magic form that allows y'all to arrest them on our behalf. It should be coming with the detainer. If it doesn't, we will ship you another one. And the middle portion is just which reason that one of us on the ICE supervisory side is issuing that warrant. It's either the judge has already issued a removal order, or the person is admitted, or we biometrically match them and know that they're here illegally or out of status. Our supervisors will sign it, and then on the bottom will be the part that you all serve it. When you serve it, it's when, where, and then the language. What language did you have to use? If you have to use an interpreter via the phone numbers that we either give you or that you have on contract, or you use somebody that speaks that language where the inmate's comfortable with it, just write it in right there. That part right there. Questions? None? Everybody wants to go home. Please be safe when you're traveling. I'm starting to see them. Yes, sir. I see you back there too.
Once we're holding them on literally only the detainer, they become federal?
If you're holding on just a detainer, they are still in your custody. They're just waiting for us to actually come arrest them. They're not arrested by us yet.
Okay. And once we exceed the 48 hours, or they come and give us the warrant for arrest?
If this is detainer only, this is not warrant service officer. If we come and pick them up, our folks that are picking it up, because it's an ICE officer, if there's no warrant service officer certified or a jail enforcement DIO, then we will send somebody that has one of our officers that has the authority to sign that warrant as well as transport. If it's under warrant service officer where you're serving the warrant for us, we will send you the warrant, you will sign it, and then we will just send whichever transport crew. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Question back over here to my left. I saw a hand come up.
I'll get him the microphone.
Yeah, I'd have got there. Oh, I could have already come back and got it. Just go ahead, sir. What's your question?
Y'all don't worry, I'm ready to go to the Red River. We've always cooperated with ICE. I know we're having to do the 287Gs now, but we have never been told of this excluding weekends and holidays. It's always been 48 hours. That's the first question. Second question is that there's just been very few times and nothing recently that they have gone past the 48 hours where we've had to reapply for a detainer. By that time, we have immigration attorneys in the lobby looking at their watches, counting it down. The third question is, have you thought about if we have facilities close to us, why can't we just bring them and eliminate that time issue on us as jails with attorneys waiting in the lobbies? It's just a thought.
Yes, sir. So the clarification between, y'all heard it, but I tried to talk about that already, sir, is we tried to make it simple on the detainers, since they go nationwide, that we just put it on there where it says 48 hours. When the Code of Federal Regulations, the actual law portion, under detainers actually excludes the weekends and holidays, we've just always tried to do it as straight 48 hours, because some circuit courts in different parts of the country, and that detainer can go wherever that inmate goes, some have been less true to the way the law was written. They do, but they always want to play I'm going to try and be there and force the hand so that the sheriff and the department doesn't get nervous and go, oh crap, I need to let the guy go right now. No, sir. I'm just saying that, but they try that.
Real quick, with regards to delivering them, I will tell you that ICE has never picked anybody up at our facility. That's exactly what we do. When we get somebody for ICE, HSI, even Border Patrol, we deliver them. If it's ICE or HSI, we take them over to Victoria County Sheriff's Office because they're a holding facility. We drop them off. We're only 90 miles from Border Patrol, so we just take them.
Where y'all at? Where you at, sir? Where are y'all at? Okay, I will get an answer. I'll find out, and Oklahoma will take them for you. I oversaw Oklahoma. We'll get them taken care of. Under warrant service officer, since all of your folks that are warrant service officer certified will also be transport certified under ICE side, they're completely legally protected at that point to transport that detainee at that point. So under warrant service officer, I'm sorry? They will be. Yes, because that will be part of the designated authorities. So they can then transport to an ICE office for us, no questions asked.
And you did say, and be reimbursed for that travel if they're transporting.
I did not say that, but I did say that you can look at using the SB 8 funds towards that portion of it. That's a state program. The federal funding for gym and warrant service officer reimbursements is not there yet. Task force is the main focus to get arrests, as we know, and then the backside of what do we do with them once they're in the jails. That portion of funding changes hasn't been addressed yet. But SB 8 will take care of you under that portion of it for funding. Other questions? I can't go into too many dollars and cents things on SB 8 because I don't own the program. That's at the state side of it. Any other questions? Sheriff, floor is yours.
All right, so what I'm going to do, he's talked to you about the programs that the federal government has for us. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Senate Bill 8. And then I'm also going to talk to you about why this is important and give you a little bit of an understanding. Unfortunately, when you work in the closed environment that the jail is, you don't always get told the totality of what we're facing and why it is important and why your piece of the puzzle is important. You know, I know in Goliad it's a little different. My jail captain, he's constantly coming out in the field, showing up, helping us out, translating, transporting, coming out in the field and helping us chase down people because we're a small agency. But in a lot of places that doesn't happen. So, you know, he gets to see the totality and hear the why. But in the jail, a lot of times you don't get that. So I'm going to talk to you about SB 8. I'm going to get with you, talk to you about why it's important and show you a few things, kind of tell you how we came to the point we were at. Because for me, it's extremely important. We were the first agency in the United States of America to be signed up for all 3 programs. And so, because the reason is it directly impacted us so much. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of counties that were impacted a lot more than we were. But for us, it's all about preventing the victimization of the people in our community, and we've got to try to do something about it. So as you can see under Senate Bill 8, it says the sheriff of each county that operates a jail or contracts with a private vendor to operate a jail, and that's important there from a legal standpoint, shall request and enter into an immigration law enforcement agreement to authorize the sheriff and officers, employees, and as applicable contractors of the sheriff's, and I put in quotes department because we're not sheriff's departments. There's a legal definition difference between a department and office. You guys work for a sheriff's office because you're constitutional. Your authority comes from the people, doesn't come from some bureaucrat somewhere to enforce federal immigration law. And so it says you have to. So I had the question come up a while ago about having a 72-hour facility versus a jail. I would assume it's going to fall that it's not going to matter. I guarantee you the legislature doesn't know the difference between a 72-hour facility and a jail. But I know that the reason you have the contractors is because you go down to places like Falfurrias and Kinney County, and those sheriffs have contracts. They have geo facilities in their counties. They're not really running so much their own jail. So next part there is the sheriff who enters into an agreement under section 753.051, which is what we just read. Once again, shall allocate the necessary resources, including personnel and funding, to ensure the proper implementation of the agreement, including the resources necessary to meet any reasonable objectives for enforcement set forth in the agreement. What that means is you can't sign an MOU and then not do anything. That's what this law is stating. You have to actually go forward and you have to actually participate. Because I've seen some of the liberal cities where the sheriffs are already sending out, memos to their people saying, yeah, we're signing the agreement, but we're not going to do anything. We're not going to help our federal partners. And they're sending these internal memos in some of these places, and those memos are getting leaked. Well, those guys may find themselves in a little bit of hot water with the state. Now, what the state's going to do with it, your guess is as good as mine. I would guess the best thing they might do is cut off some of their funding. But under this law, we have to sign up and we have to actually participate. We can't just sign up and sit on our duffs and not do anything. So, y'all talked about money. There were a few questions about money. Under the Senate Bill 8 grant program, the amount is determined based off the population. Now, as you can see there, if you're 99,999 people or less, you get $80,000 for the 2-year cycle. Just like the Operation Lone Star grant, remember, the legislature only meets every other year. And so that's how they allocate the funds. So this is for a 2-year cycle. 100,000 to just under 500,000, you get $100,000. 500,000 to just under a million, 120, and a million or more, 140,000. So there's not much of a spread in there. I'm not quite sure why it is that way, because I'll tell you, for Houston, 140,000 is chump change. That probably won't pay for the oil changes in their cars this year. But, you know, for a place like Goliad, and we're a little bitty place, $80,000 is like hitting the lottery. Are you kidding? But we have to take that money and we have to allocate it for certain things. And so that's what we'll look at next, because this was something that came up. You see here, compensation for persons performing duties under the agreement as an authorized expenditure. And so, of course, we're still waiting on the comptroller to come out with the rules, but these are the basic, things that were in the bill itself. Generating and delivering reports, equipment related to services not provided, training or other event required under the agreement. So if you have to send your folks to some kind of training, you can pay for it out of there. If you have some sort of combined operations, you might be able to use that money to help pay for that, just like we do under Operation Lone Star. Cost to the county for confining inmates under the agreement. So if you have expenses related to having those inmates in your facility, this money can be used towards that. Personally, I say make the commissioners pay for it. Sheriff ought to be getting something a little bit better for their people out of it. And then, of course, other expenses associated with participation. And that's where you're typically going to wind up with those transport costs. You asked back here about transport. Usually that will cover some of that. How many of you receive OLS grant funding every year? Nobody in here receives it? Just a few people. Of course, we receive it. It also pays for transportation. Oh, yeah, and don't forget your SCAP grant. How many of y'all receive SCAP grant money for holding criminal aliens? And we get that as well. Some of those funds can go for those things. And so you have to look around at your options when it comes to the grants you get and figure out which one best matches and is going to fill in the gap that you have from a financial standpoint. So, but if you're not getting OLS, that is, for us, that's been a godsend. So I'm going to go into why should we participate in the 287G program and how does it impact our county? Because this is probably one of the things that you as folks working in the jails don't get to understand all the time. You don't get to see that totality because you see what comes in. Like I said, you're the foundation. You're the one everything is built upon. But we don't always do a great job of explaining to you the why we're doing what we're doing. And I'll give you a good example. I was the chief deputy at Victoria County Sheriff's Office under T. Michael O'Connor. The jail captain came to me one day, and we had about 575 bed jail over there. And he comes to me and says, I don't want to accept anything under a felony in the jail anymore. And I looked at him and I said, why? He said, well, it's a hassle. If we just took felonies and just didn't take any of these misdemeanors, it would sure make life easier in the jail. I said, well, I bet it would, because we cut down a huge number of the people in the jail. And I said, but that's not a realistic thing. He said, well, how about we don't take Class Cs? I said, well, how about this? I said, you go on the streets and you got a guy that's causing problems, and the only thing you can arrest him for is cross an intersection diagonally. It's a Class C misdemeanor in the state of Texas. I said, if we take that authority away from the people on the streets, then we're no longer going to be able to solve those problems that continue to plague us. And I said, and once we start eliminating things that we're going to accept people in the jail for, the criminals know immediately. And they will start taking advantage of that. And basically, you will be inviting poor behavior in this community. I said, so therefore, we can't do that. We have to leave the discretion of the peace officer up to the peace officer. We can't allow the jail to dictate who gets to come to jail and who doesn't. And I told him, I said, your job is to take care of them once they get here and do all the things you need to do. He didn't like it, but we did it. After we left, they implemented that for a short period of time, and it didn't work so well. The police department was not very happy. So I threw a few pictures up here because humans are visual. No two ways about it. You see that picture up on the top left up there with those guys in the back of that pickup truck? And you may say to yourself, that's the youngest deputy I've ever seen in my life. I don't know. I think I looked that way when I was 22 and became a municipal police officer. Everybody used to ask me if I even had to shave. That's my 12-year-old son with the AR. And I will tell you, that was the precursor to the OLS grant funding at the local level. Because we left church, and it was so bad in the beginning of 2021. We left church, and my wife and the rest of the kids were going home. We got 4 kids. I said, hey, I'm going out to Tony's house, and I'm going to go get a holster he made for me. Tony was a guy that got out of prison. He's trying to make an honest living, so he starts a leather shop, and he's making stuff. So the deputies and I all got together and thought, you know, the best way to keep Tony out of prison is keep him busy. Let's get some stuff. So he's making stuff for me. He's making me a nice holster for my 1911. And so we leave church, and we're headed down the highway. And as I pass this pickup truck, I see a sheet of plywood in the bed. It's got fingers all the way around it. And we call that a clue. And I may be a sheriff, but even I understood that. I saw that and I thought, man, that is something right there. All those people to hold down that one sheet of plywood, that must be some valuable wood. So I got on the radio, I asked dispatch, do you have a deputy in the area? Because I got my 12-year-old son with me. They're like, no, the deputies are both on a call on the other side of the county. I'm like, all right. I said, well, call Victoria. We're headed towards Victoria. See if they have a deputy available. Call Victoria. Nope, they don't have anybody available right now. I'm like, well, it's just me and the boy. And I looked at him. I said, son, we're going to stop them. They're going to run. Hold on. And so sure enough, I go to stop them. They run. They wind up on a farm-to-market road, and they try to drive through a ditch. But by the grace of God, it had actually rained, and the ditch was muddy. And they tried to drive through a friend of mine who's a retired DPS undercover narcotics officer's fence, which wouldn't have probably gone so well for them. Between the dogs and the guns, it probably would have been a bad day for these guys. So we chase them, and the truck bails out, and I grab my AR, and I'm able to get the guys in the bed to stay. And at the time, there were no deputies there. So I had him hold the AR while I started zip tying everybody in the bed of the truck. I ensured that they knew that I was not going to tolerate them getting out. And so a little bit later, the deputy showed up, and so I backed up and took that picture. And I sent that picture to the chief of staff of the governor's office with some choice words about how bad it was. And that was the picture that kind of led to the next week. We got a call to meet at the Capitol. I think, Arturo, weren't you there at that? Were you there at that meeting we had with all the border sheriffs? Yeah, at the Capitol. That's how I got in that meeting, from that picture right there. And at that meeting, that's the meeting where the governor's office came to me after we met and asked to help write a financial plan for how OLS could work as a grant. So that's what that was. But that was a regular occurrence. This was like 3 times a week, not with my son. He only had to hold a gun on people a couple times. He was 14 when he did it the last time, and my wife asked him, said, weren't you scared? And he goes, oh, Mom, this ain't the first time I've held a gun on some illegals. So he's now 16 years old and like 6'3". So he's a lot bigger than that now. And the other picture up here on the upper right, those are guns we took from smugglers, from the house of a smuggling organization here in Houston area. And then we've got some guys that we caught down there. And I will tell you, what we wound up overrun. How many of you know what a cartel stash site is? And I'm telling you all this so you kind of understand the totality. A cartel stash site is a place where the cartel or one of their contractors or subcontractors will typically go and have a house that's abandoned or on a piece of property that is absentee landowner, and they will set up and they will strip stolen vehicles. They will steal stolen vehicles. They will hide illegals there without the knowledge of the property owner. They will also go there and they will use it as a logistical waypoint or a place to lay down when law enforcement has been after them. We wound up with 16 of those in Goliad County. Those are just the ones we found out riding around and patrolling. And so we started all these investigations, and we started this task force, the Operation Lone Star Task Force, that grew from 8 to now 60 agencies across the state. And we started hunting down these organizations. These are the mugshots of the people that we arrested for smuggling of persons in Goliad County from 2021 to this year. There's one that's missing. We're at 98. 98 people in a little rural county. And to put a little bit of perspective on that, the administration before us arrested an average of 77 people a year. We arrested 502 people last year. But a lot of it is tied to these organizations. The guy up on the upper left, he was the guy who was hiring smugglers off of TikTok out of California, would fly them to San Antonio, would get them in a rental car, have them go down to Eagle Pass, pick up another rental car, go to another location, pick up people, and haul them. And we caught his smugglers that he was hiring. Yeah, that's him with an RPG in San Antonio. So these are the kind of people we're dealing with. The guy in the middle is Pelusa. You see it says Pelusa 2 up there. He was a head guy in the Teteca organization out of Michoacan, Mexico, that was operating out of Miguel Alemán. We chased this guy, I don't know how many times. He missed his calling. Some bitch should have been an IndyCar driver or something, because he could run. He could not only drive like crazy, but he could run on foot like crazy. But that's him with an AR. Here, he's an illegal alien, and he's smuggling people, one load after another, high on meth, driving 120 miles an hour down the back roads in your counties, if you're in South Texas. Anywhere from San Antonio east, all the way back around to Houston. This guy ran back and forth constantly, making multiple trips a day because he was so whacked out on meth. We caught his female scout driver sleeping at a gas station. She tells us that he took her out to one of these cartel stash sites I talked about. He lined up 19 illegal aliens on the ground on their knees, took his Glock, poked them each in the head, and made them watch him as he raped her, his own employee. We finally got this guy, the most disappointing apprehension we've ever had, because we chased this guy, I don't know how many times. We did, other local law enforcement, DPS. None of us ever caught the guy. It was phenomenal, because the scout network they have to get picked up when they bail out is something else. But he was in Houston and got in a fender bender with an elderly lady in a parking lot, and he waited for the police to show up to make a report and didn't know he had a federal indictment. In his final pleading, he's 60 years in federal prison right now. He admitted to 222 sexual assaults of females that he smuggled. That's what he could remember. He could remember 222 of them. Just let that sink in. This is the evil we're dealing with. The other guy there, he's Changa. I have his nice Wilson combat-tuned Gold Cup 1911 in our collection now from all the guns we've taken from these people. And he was number 3 in the Teteca organization. And this guy, we've got video of him. He would just drive around on your little backcountry roads doing 100 miles an hour, just shooting guns out the window just randomly as he went past people's places. So this is why it's important to me, because it's not what people told you it is. It's not immigration. Believe it or not, it's actually slave trade. And the logistics are phenomenal that go into it. And I'll tell you kind of how it works, because we did not have an immigration issue. We had a slave trade issue. So let's say I've got all the people at this table right here, and we've brought them in. Well, now they get turned over to me. I pay the subcontractor for the cartels to buy these people. And now it takes them on average 8 to 13 years to buy their freedom from me. And I know that because we've actually found the letters where they write about being slaves and having to buy their freedom. Well, so what do I do with them? I put them all in a one-bedroom apartment. Usually there's about 10 to 15 of them in a one-bedroom apartment. And these folks, they own a hotel. And they don't want to have to pay FICA and Social Security and such for maid service and for lawn care. So what they do is they pay me, and I tell a couple of these, you all have to go take care of all the maid service, you have to go take care of all the lawn care at this location, and this is how you'll pay off the debt to me. Now, mind you, I'm charging each one of them rent every month. I'm charging them for utilities on top of what they already owe me for me buying them from somebody. And that's how it functions. And we saw it firsthand in Victoria. It happens in restaurants. It happens in hotels. There are entire businesses, there are entire regional restaurant chains that you might go to that are actually nothing but shells for the cartels to launder money, move people, and move drugs. There are a lot of them across the United States of America, and there are a lot of them across Texas. You'd be amazed how many hotels, how many restaurants, how many businesses. They're not there to do business. That's icing on top of the cake. They're actually there to move the money and the products. That's what they're there for. Tire shops are a big one. You got all these little tire shops pop up. They're a big one for money laundering. But that's how it works. But the problem, and we saw this firsthand, is they become a pain in the butt because they all live in a one-bedroom apartment. And I now have to deal with the fact that they're squabbling and fighting all the time. Well, I get tired of them, so I sell them to her. And then she leases them out to somebody else. And then she gets tired of them and sells them. But the problem is every time that happens, they're starting that cycle of debt over again. So if you buy your freedom in 8 to 13 years, you're one of the lucky ones here in the United States. Because all those people that came across are tracked, and the cartel keeps them in their database. If you don't think the cartel has a database, realize that the cartel and the Mexican government are one and the same. They're all together. Because we've interviewed these people and asked them, why don't you leave this situation? And the answer we get is very simply this: because they know where my family is, and if I don't pay the debt off, my family has to. And so there's only one way that that debt gets paid off, either by time, well, there's a couple with time or deportation. Because once they're deported, that debt is forgiven because it's a business decision on the cartels. So y'all should have copies of this on your desk. This is just to show you. This is a simplified version of how complex the logistical chain of the cartels is. And this is just going to Houston. This is not going beyond Houston. This is just getting a product to Houston and then getting the money back. And this is what we're dealing with. So this, you should have a copy of that, is a human smuggling flow chart that we built off of some of our cases. You've got copies, too small to read up there. But this is why 287G is important, because without 287G participation, there is absolutely no way we are going to solve this problem. It's like it says, how does the local 287G help support domestic security? Easy. By denying the cartels the ability to conduct business in a manner that generates an acceptable profit margin. If your agencies aren't participating in 287G, aren't actively going out and seeking those people that are illegally in this country in order to have them deported, believe it or not, every one of them that remains here is beholden to the cartels. Because just because I bought these guys and I'm using them doesn't mean that I don't get a call and they now have to go do something else on my behalf. Because the whole time they're making money, I also have to give money back to the subcontractor who runs that money back through that chain back to Mexico. So we all have to do our part, and that's a big piece of it. And that's something that you don't always get to see in the jail. But I find a lot of law enforcement doesn't know that, even the guys on the streets. And so I just think it's very important for us to understand that we all have to do our part. And if we don't, there's no way we're going to solve this problem. How many illegal aliens are in this country? Does anybody have a guess? Have y'all heard? Has anybody said anything? You know, you hear it on the news. You hear 10 million. You hear, 50 million. You hear 25 million. Well, it's been 25 million for the last 30 years, so I kind of doubt nobody has snuck in since then. But the number that was estimated to have actually come across during the Biden administration was somewhere between 40 and 60 million. Came into the United States. I had Border Patrol sector chiefs tell me that anywhere from 18 to 25 million came across in 2021 alone. That's a lot of people. And if those people are allowed to remain in this country, then we will not be able to dismantle the cartels. Because no matter what we do in Mexico, no matter how secure Border Patrol has the border, the cartel has the capacity to conduct their operations in the United States as long as those people are here. They have the capacity to make their money. Any of you that are on the coast, that's where a lot of the movement is going now. We're tracking the groups that are coming in through the ships on the cargo containers. All these ships lined out here waiting to come to port. They're bringing them in the cargo boxes. Every one of those things is tracked. But now we have companies that deal with technology that are looking to track those as well, and we're starting to look to see where are the containers that are holding the people. And a lot of these ships are bringing folks in with them. And so it's extremely important that we continue to do everything we can to deny them the ability to conduct their business here. Because let's say when Trump is gone, we all know he's only got, 3.5 years left, a little less than that. What's going to happen? Do you think it's all solved? I ask people all the time, do you think Trump won so everything is good? I'm going to tell you, it is not good. We are not achieving the numbers that we need to achieve across the United States of America to solve this problem. And the only way that we achieve those numbers is by a combined effort between the federal, the state, and the local law enforcement entities to come together under one unified mission, under one understanding, and achieve a singular goal of dismantling cartel operations in the United States. And I will tell you, for me, that's exactly what this is. And we are not getting there. There are some that are fighting, there are some that are doing what needs to be done, but there are a lot who aren't. And a lot of that is because they don't comprehend the totality of what it is we're doing and what it is we need to do. We have to change our methodology. We have to change our mindset. I mean, you guys in the jail, how often does the jail commission come out with new rules for you? Answers all the time. I get those emails. We're going to send you some technical advisory, and now you're going to do this. You guys are used to it. But we all have to do that. We have to make the changes necessary because the cartel is like water, and they flow wherever the path of least resistance is. And I'll give you a good example of that. We formed our task force. There were some counties to the west of us. The sheriffs didn't want anything to do with proactive field work. Very quickly, the Department of Homeland Security called and said, we're like, man, our numbers are dropping off. And they're like, yep. They said, the cartel knows exactly who's joined your task force and who hasn't. They said, and they're driving through the counties that didn't join the task force. They're setting up their stash sites in those counties because the sheriffs were either just lazy or incompetent or otherwise and did not want anything to do with actual enforcement. And the cartels moved all their contractors through those counties to move all the illegals through, to move all the dope through. And so if you've got a county that you're not participating and you're not out in the field, if your sheriff's office isn't out in the field being active, then you in effect become a sanctuary county. You know, you need to, as sheriffs, we've got to ask ourselves, what are we doing to keep the people in our community safe? And the only way to do that is proactive work. And so, like I said, you guys work in the jail, but I want you to understand kind of the totality of what we're dealing with, the things that are outside of those walls, because it's not often explained to you. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of cartel members in the United States. The cartel is like, look at them like Walmart. They are a compartmentalized distribution, company that sends billions of dollars worth of product and brings billions of dollars worth of cash back. They operate in isolated cells, and most of them don't know about each other. But the dope that goes to your county probably didn't come to your county from Mexico. But it got there by going somewhere else, just like Walmart. It goes from the manufacturer, it's transported to a huge, to a warehouse type situation. It's divvied out. It goes out into regional warehouses to be distributed out to the stores, so to speak. And that's kind of how things function. It's very decentralized, very compartmentalized, which makes it difficult. Therefore, the only way for us to dismantle it is to take away that logistical capacity to make that complex machine function. And that is exactly where 287G comes in. I'll ask you, show of hands, how many of you think you got cartel-related issues in your county? Handful of you. How many of you have burglars in your county? Any of you? Any of you have, anybody get a burglar in jail? Anybody get anybody for criminal mischief in jail? Anybody get anybody for robbery, armed robbery? Those class 1 crimes that we deal with, the burglary, robberies, thefts, all the thefts and stuff, every one of those crimes, I say every one, they say 95+% of all those crimes are directly related to addiction to illicit substances. And those illicit substances come from the cartels. Without those illicit substances, you wouldn't have those people in your jail. Most of them would not be there. And so, if you don't think you have a problem with cartel activity in your county, it's just because you're not looking at it in the proper way. Because that is just how it functions. So with that, I'll ask if anybody has any questions or comments. Does anybody have anything? I don't know about y'all, my watch says 10:30. If not, I thank you. I urge you to do everything you can to help out and help ICE. These guys are outstanding partners, and we thank you, and God bless each and every one of you, and thank you for what you do.